Hi people! Wow, we've just seen an incredible performance from Arsenal in the North London derby, beating Tottenham away 2-0, and in doing so opening up an 8-point gap at the top of the Premier League table after 18 games. So Arsenal, their record this season, 15 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss. And for me, people, of these 15 wins, today's victory over Tottenham was the most impressive, the most significant, and the most indicative of the growth and evolution that we've seen from Arsenal since last season. So, towards the home straight of last season, in the 36th match week of that season, Arsenal went to Tottenham away, and at that point in the season there was a 4-point lead for Arsenal over Tottenham, and on that night Tottenham won that match and cut the gap to 1 point, and this preceded a subsequent match where Arsenal lost to Newcastle and ultimately Tottenham got the 4th spot ahead of the Gunners. This season, roll forward 6-8 months, and we've seen a much more professional, composed and precise clinical performance from Arsenal. They were fantastic in the first half. That performance in the first 45 minutes was just some of the best football I've seen from the Gunners this season. The interplays were so smooth, the patterns of play, you could really tell that Arsenal had really worked on their strategy and how they wanted to combine the different players in these attacking sequences. Thomas Partey at the centre of it, with the receiving the ball from Ramsdale, looking out wide for either Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and there was lots of activity and dynamism and movement going on that just made Tottenham appear like they were chasing shadows. They could never really get anywhere near Arsenal, and Arsenal scored their 2 goals in the first half. The first one, Saka getting to the byline, cutting it back with a cross, and Hugo Lloris conceding an own goal by fumbling the ball into his own net. And then the second goal, Saka passing to Odegaard, who rifles a low drive into the bottom right corner. So it was just Arsenal at their very best. And having established the 2-0 lead, I was equally as impressed with how Arsenal managed the game in the second half, how professional, disciplined and compact they remained in the second half. Yes, Ramsdale was required to make some important saves, and he did very well. But I felt as if Arsenal, on the whole, were limiting Tottenham to random opportunities. It wasn't like a barrage where Tottenham were constantly coming at Arsenal. And I was so impressed as well with how Arsenal remained calm in the midst of a little bit of frustration coming their way from Tottenham. I think a few of Tottenham's players were understandably getting a little bit agitated about how the game was going against them. And this was clearly noted, people, from my side at the end of the game, where I saw Aaron Ramsdale, obviously he kicked the ball at the end, and that signalled the full-time whistle. And after the full-time whistle went, a couple of the Tottenham supporters appeared to come on the pitch, or supporters, I don't know if they were Tottenham fans, presumably they were. And I heard from one of the interviewers in the press conference that Ramsdale, I believe, was pushed in the back or something along those lines. But what impressed me so much, people, and I want to draw attention here to Mikel Arteta, because in my last video I was very impassioned in my support of Arteta and his personality, his body language on the touchline for Arsenal. Today I saw a different side to that, and another side of why I really am so impressed with Arteta and how he's leading Arsenal. Because during the match, first of all, I'll talk about during the match, then after, with that incident with Ramsdale. So during the match I saw Arteta a lot calmer. He was a lot more composed, almost as if he had trust and a sense of affirmation that, hey, the guys are actually performing how I want. I'm happy with this. I'm not going to get too involved. I don't need to today. And after the match, he was very much leading the peacemaking. So Ramsdale wanted to turn around and get involved with the fan. Granit Xhaka was also turning around and he was getting baited into a little bit of a confrontation with either the Tottenham players or the supporters. It was difficult to make out what exactly was going on, but nevertheless, Arteta was instrumental in just ushering Ramsdale and Xhaka away from the storm, just saying, look, we've won the game, don't worry about that stuff, heat of the moment, let's just pull away and celebrate with the Arsenal fans down on the opposite side of the stadium. And that's exactly what Arteta did. He led the players over in a very calm and somehow settling way, like he was settling everyone down. And the way Arsenal celebrated with the fans, it was so special to see. You could really sense that this was a club that's together, that everyone's united, everyone is believing in the mission, believing in what's happening at Arsenal this season. And it was just a very touching moment, seeing all of the Arsenal playing staff, coaching staff, medical staff over there, celebrating with the fans, and just watching the AFTV fan cams with some of the supporters, the Arsenal supporters that were at the match. They all seemed on a real high, like they were singing the Super Mick Arteta song, they were loving the energy, they were sensing the moment, and like this was symbolic, this win, of potentially more successful season to come. And on the Arteta theme, people, I just want to read out some of his quotes from the press conference, because again, I think these tell a story about why I'm so impressed with how Mikel Arteta was just taking the sting out of the angst that happened at the end. He was just settling things down and not making things a big issue or adding fuel to the fire, because he was asked about 3 times about the incidents at the end. The first one was just a general question about what happened at the end of the match with the scenes with the supporters, and Arteta just said, I haven't seen anything. What I've seen is a beautiful game of football. Just, for me, it's a perfect response, because in that response, he's basically saying, I don't want to draw attention to things that detract from how we've played and the success that we've achieved today in terms of winning the match. And then there was another question asking about the specifics of the incident with Aaron Ramsdale and potentially him receiving some sort of push from the supporter. And he said, Aaron had some great saves, and I love that, because yes, we need that to win here. So he's essentially not answered the question. He's just heard Ramsdale's name. He said, you know what, I'm not going to answer a question about the incident at the end, because that's not the headline. That's not the main story of the day in terms of Ramsdale. The main story of the day is actually the guy's put in a fantastic performance in goal. And then the final quote I want to read, people, is again one of the press conference members, one of the journalists, asked Arteta about whether or not the incident with the fan was concerning. And again, Arteta just did a wonderful job of just steering the discussion away, steering the dialogue away from that incident. I'll read the quote first and I'll tell you why I think that's so impressive. He said, we will deal with that. There's nothing we can do right now. I wouldn't want that taking 0.0001% of the enjoyment, satisfaction that we have at the moment. We will deal with that tomorrow. So he's saying there's a time and a place for that conversation, but right now the focus needs to be on the historic win, the memorable win that we've just enjoyed. And why I like this, people, is because I feel Arteta is very savvy with how he deals with the media, and this is just a more general point, but I think it's well exemplified here with these quotes, because he's able to just gently steer the discussion away from what the reporter wants the story to look and feel like, to how Arteta wants the message to go. There's a subtle difference. So obviously the reporter has maybe a quote or an angle he wants to go with the story. Arteta's saying, no, I'm not going to go with your story here. I'm going to talk about what I think benefits Arsenal and the message I want to project as the Arsenal manager in this moment. And for me, that's absolutely the way to go about it. And another aspect, people, I want to really focus on with Arteta is, I feel like he's very much an in-the-moment type person. And this is another thing I really like about him. He doesn't bring baggage with him in press conferences. So when people criticise Arteta for being so emotive, so animated on the touchline, for me this is just a little example of what I'm talking about. He lets his emotion out on the touchline. He lets it out in what I perceive to be what he's seeing as like a healthy expression of his emotion as he feels it. He lets it out. But when he comes into the press conference, it's very much, this is the domain where I need to be a little bit more measured. This is the area where I need to be conscious of what I'm saying, to actually think about almost every word. I feel like Arteta is thinking, yeah, these press conferences, that emotion that I was feeling on the touchline, that stays there. And it doesn't need to fester or come into the press conference. Press conference is a moment where I can actually send a message. I can send a message to my players, I can send a message to the supporters, I can keep it positive. And I feel like he also is a bit like this, people, with how Arsenal respond to disappointments. Rather than a feeling of disappointment lingering, I think Arteta's very good at bookending that feeling. So I've mentioned how he does it with his animation, with his potentially his anger, potentially his frustration. Very much gets left on the touchline. I feel disappointments get left out there on the field. He'll say, yeah, we're disappointed, but look, it's done. We're moving on. We've got the next game to prepare for. So this is what I like about Arteta, people. He's living in the moment. He's enjoying the moment. He's expressing his honest truth in the moment. I don't think there are any agendas here with Arteta. I genuinely feel like he's just calling things as he sees it. Like I mentioned people against Newcastle, he was frustrated to the breaking point at certain aspects of Newcastle's tactics and maybe how the referee was managing or not managing those incidents as they arose. He let out his frustration there and then. I don't think he was doing it to manipulate anything for the future or create a feeling of us against them or sending a message to people in a explicit way. I just think he was expressing his honest truth as he felt it, and that was the end of the story. And I think he leaves that there, and we move on, and we keep going with the flow for the upcoming preparation. So he's very much, he's not carrying things with him. And that's what I'm so impressed with Arteta, people. And I think the squad are really buying into that. You can see there's a real sense of urgency and a sense of we're not taking our eye off the ball, we're not getting distracted, we're moving forward with the blows, we're going with the flow and rolling with the punches. So long may it continue, people, with Arteta. So happy with how things are going, people, at the Emirates. And I just feel like there's a special atmosphere brewing. And long may it continue, everyone. Okay, people, Manchester United up next in the league. That is going to be a huge match because Man United are also finding some really good form at the moment. So you feel like it's a crunch match in the season. If Arsenal can back up this win against Tottenham with another win against Man United, then it's onwards and upwards. But as Mikel will keep reinforcing, it's very much a case of one step at a time. Okay, people, hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any. And don't forget, people, if you enjoy these videos, you can always subscribe and support the channel in that way. And also, if you like the video, feel free to like the video as well as you see it. Okay, people, peace and love.